Good evening, everyone. Sorry, give me one sec. There we go. That'll take care of that. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Hope you're all doing well. I'm just going to ask, I'll call the meeting to order, but I was just wondering if, for the people joining remotely, if you're able to turn the camera on, it would be amazing. We'd love to see you. And if you're able to, that would be fantastic. So I'll just call the meeting to order. We have quorum for tonight. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Really appreciate that. I'm going to start with one question. If anyone does have their phone and they haven't muted it in the room, that would be great if you can mute the phone and turn it to silent. I'm going to do the land acknowledgements. So the city of Hamilton is situated on the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. This land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that this land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase of 1792 between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Today, the city of Hamilton is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we recognize that we must do more to learn about the rich history of this land so that we can take better care and understand our role as residents, neighbors, partners, and caretakers. So we have an agenda out. I was just wondering if there's any comments on the agenda. And first I'll start as if there's any comments on the agenda. No? Okay. If I can ask for a mover and a seconder of the agenda, that would be great. Could just raise your hands online if you. Perfect. Thank you. Got Shelley, I got as a mover. And did I get a seconder? Sorry, I missed that when I was looking on the screen. Sue, thank you. Okay. So that motion is carried. I did want to ask if there's any declarations of interest. Just if you have any either perceived or interest in any of the agenda items, if you could just raise where that may be. Just gonna, if Shelley, just want to make sure that hand is from previous. I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. Thanks. All right, so that is, I don't see any mention of anything online or no interest, declarations of interest, so we'll move on. So I do have the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. Oh, I didn't actually do roll call, so I'll do that. We got it actually online, right? Okay. I have the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting from the September 23rd. Are there any comments on the draft meeting notes? Seeing none? Okay, so if I could ask for a mover and a seconder for the approval of the meeting notes from the September 23rd meeting on 2025. You can just raise your hand. Perfect, thank you. Shelley. And a seconder, please. Thank you, Sue. Okay, that motion is carried. We don't have any delegations on the agenda for today. So I'm going to move on to items for information, which is agenda item number 7. We have a presentation by, let me just see, where's Mac? Where did he go? Glenn, sorry, Watt, Glenn Watt. Perfect. We have a presentation from Glenn Watt, and it's on the overview of the solid waste management master plan and phase 2 of the organics management technical feasibility study. Thanks, Glenn. Really appreciate you taking the time to join the committee and present on an update on these 2 items. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. And can you see my
See your
screen okay?
screen, Glenn. Thank you very much.
Great. Okay. All right. Through the chair. Good evening. My name is Glenn Watt. I'm a senior project manager in the Waste Management Division, working in the policy and program section. Today, I'll be giving you a relatively short presentation to inform and gain feedback on two important projects the Waste Management has been working on this year. One, the Solid Waste Management Master Plan, and two, the Organics Management Strategy, Phase 2 Technical Feasibility Study. Another important purpose of this presentation is to highlight how these two projects can support the climate change goals. So to start with a project overview, each year the City of Hamilton manages about 240,000 tons of waste, including garbage, organics, and other materials that can be diverted from landfill. To handle this responsibly, the city has a solid waste management system in place, and it covers collection, processing, recycling, and disposal. So Hamilton's current 25-year solid waste management plan was approved in 2001 and updated in 2012 and in 2020, and it is a long-term strategy for managing the city's waste. The new plan is meant to build off the previous plan's work and align with the council's current priorities and climate goals. So the development of the 2025 Solid Waste Management Master Plan is being carried out in three key phases: investigation, ideation, and finalization. Each phase involves engagement with the community and council. During phase one, we gathered input from the new vision for the 2025 master plan and existing guiding principles. Phase two focused on evaluating different options and developing a framework to assess them. And phase three, which we're entering to now, involves developing a 5-year action plan to address the immediate priorities while finalizing the master plan. So how did we apply the climate lens to these projects? This slide kind of covers both projects because we used the same methods for both. But we use the standard project management tools that were introduced to Public Works in the city, as well as the standard climate lens procedures. We used project stakeholder engagement, where we engage with staff and Public Works Committee and other municipalities, and worked with Engage Hamilton to provide and gather information from the community. And we used the Public Works Climate Resiliency Team, or Public Works Climate Team, which I've been part of for the last few years, so that group got regular updates. We also utilized the project documentation, where when we were hiring consultants, we embedded the goals of the climate adaptation plan and corporate energy emissions plan into the RFP documents when hiring the consultants. So we had them as appendixes, so they were very transparent with what we were trying to accomplish. And we included climate goals in the engagement tools. In the community survey that we completed, we listed waste management practices that other municipalities have done, which contributed to the avoidance of GHG emissions, and asked which ones the community would support most. And climate goals, using that information, climate goals were used in the evaluation of the new potential options, and a score was applied to them if they supported the climate goals or energy emissions plan. So this slide, we know that in the climate change adaptation plan, there's prioritized adaptive actions sorted into 4 themes. That's on the left of the slide there. And so I'm briefly going to just speak to them, how they align with 4 of the overarching goals of the master plan. So theme number 1, built environment, aligns with the master plan's goal of enhancing the waste management asset management system and overall system performance, increasing infrastructure resilience. This will support the community's preparedness and resilience to respond to climate-related risks from extreme weather, including flooding, thus supporting emergency preparedness. Often the waste sites and programs are used to support the community members that experience flooding or power outages. I think this is one of the actual objectives in the adaptation plan. Theme number 2 was people and health. It aligns with the master plan's goal of delivering efficient and accessible waste services that allows the entire community the ability to manage their waste efficiently and safely and in a manner that reduces environmental impacts. Theme 3, the natural environment, agriculture, and water. This aligns with the waste plan's goal of increasing waste diversion and preserving landfill life, preventing litter, proper management of household hazardous waste, all contributing to sustainable land management. Reducing food waste from landfills helps reduce methane emissions. By reducing food waste and throwing less of it away can help reduce the carbon footprint of food and also help to save money and reduce food insecurity. And theme number 4, energy and economy. The master plan gives the opportunity to support circular economy principles such as reuse and repair. Also, the introduction of renewable power from food waste. So on the slide here, we have some of the options that are being brought forward for consideration in the master plan. These are just a few select ones that ranked highly as supporting climate goals. So expanding reuse at CRCs support upstream waste prevention, reducing demand for new goods and associated GHG emissions from them. Exploring wheeled carts and automatic trucks for single family collection. GHG emissions expected to decrease through the use of CNG trucks and more efficient routing enabled by this automation. Reduced reliance on manual collection may also lower fuel consumption and vehicle idling times. The transition to bi-weekly garbage collection. GHG emissions are expected to decrease due to the reduction in the number of collection vehicles in operation each week, fewer overall trips resulting from the shift to bi-weekly collection. Fewer garbage collection trips will reduce fuel consumption and vehicle emissions and overall carbon footprint. There's also a history of green cart organics capture increasing when moving to bi-weekly pickup. Turning organic waste into renewable natural gas. This ranked really highly with the community. So RNG production from the organics is a key corporate energy and emission plan action and directly supports GHG reduction targets. And exploring mixed waste processing to recover recyclables from garbage. So this enables recovery of organics and recyclables from the garbage stream, which can be directed to anaerobic digestion, supporting GHG reductions and renewable energy generation. Mixed waste processing has often been attributed to helping widely with apartment recycling and public space recycling because there's less focus on having people sort the waste and more on having machines sort the waste. So moving on. How are we going to keep the committee in play in supporting the waste strategy and an engagement between the staff teams? And what roles could this committee play for the waste management strategy? Well, we can align the climate goals where possible, and continued collaboration helps ensure the waste management master plan supports the broader climate goals, such as net zero targets and municipal sustainability strategies. We can get technical input, get expertise in greenhouse gas accounting and help assess the climate impacts of different waste management options. This ensures the decisions are backed by solid data and reflect best practices in emission reduction. And I know Trevor has a new calculator that we're using with our organic strategy. We're promoting innovation. The committee can recommend emerging technologies, bring those type of approaches forward, like anaerobic digestion or types of circular economy models that reduce emissions and improve system efficiency. And then continuing to engage in the community by linking waste reduction to climate goals. The committee and waste management division can help support each other. So the final stretch of the project is validating our recommendations and engaging with council and the public and preparing for implementation. This will set the stage for the next 5 years of action. The next steps, remaining tasks, are finalizing our recommendations and developing our implementation and monitoring framework, and putting together that short-term action plan. So you'll see there's some key dates that are approaching quickly. The draft report is planned for to be prepared for the end of the year, and final report at the beginning of 2026, with the report and council report going to Public Works Committee in February of 2026. Now, I'm not sure if I should stop and pause for questions on this project and then move to the organic strategy, or just keep going with both projects.
Thanks for asking, Glenn. I think it'd be great if we can pause for questions here on this part of the presentation before moving on to the next one, if that's okay.
That sounds great.
Perfect. Thanks, Glenn. Are there any questions for? Of course. Go ahead, Mary Ellen.
I have a particular interest in the circular economy aspect of the management plan. And I noted that the city has done a couple of events for textile recycling and textile opportunities for the public to bring their textile waste. Do you foresee textiles ever being part of the Blue Box system, or will it continue to be something that's done on a special event basis? It's a huge source of carbon emissions, textile production, and recycling is a real solution for some of those issues.
I can't say in the Blue Box because the city's stepping away from the management of the Blue Box, but I can say that there is plans for more textile events and thoughts about expanding the textile collection to our 3 community recycling centers. Well, I guess one of them already has it through the reuse store at our mountain location, but expanding it to those 3 sites, as well as consideration of just partnering with other organizations that do textile collection.
Great. Glenn, if I can ask one question, do you see the movement towards the producer responsibilities, like the changes happening in the Blue Box system, do you see that having impacts in terms of the climate goals and targets that are associated with the solid waste management plan?
There is some, yes. So one of the ones that would jump out at me right away is with the new common collection program that is being run by the province. The new acceptable item list has been just revealed in the last couple of weeks, and there's newer items that are expanded list of items that are allowed in the program. So there is an avoidance in that manner of now there's being more collected for it to be recycled.
So, sorry. So just so I make sure I understand that, there's actually going to be more items that are available for recycling with the producer response as we transition to the producer responsibilities than there is at present.
That's correct. That's
okay.
correct.
And
So
in terms
beginning
of
in 2026.
Gotcha. And in terms of being able to track diversion rates, do you see the producer responsibility, like the movement towards producer responsibilities, causing us a little bit more challenges in terms of tracking diversion rates?
Yes, we will rely on that information from circular materials, the province getting that information. And yes, it will change the way we do our metrics as far as diversion rates that we have responsibility over, because we don't have responsibility for how well the Common Collection program works anymore.
Yeah. All right, perfect. Thank you. One of the things that kind of does raise for me in terms of an action item moving forward, it might be good at some future time period. I don't know what the time period would be, well, at least a year, I would guess, in terms of understanding what the implications of that movement towards the producer responsibility means for diversion rates and tracking and the ability of the city to track. And I'm not sure what the time frame for that. If you have any suggestions for what you think is in a reasonable time frame where that insights from that process will be able to be shared, that would be great.
Yeah, it is one of the direct tasks in this master plan to revamp the waste management division's metrics with the consideration of the blue box being removed. So it'll be coming forward in Q1 of next year.
Perfect. Thank you, Glenn. Any other questions? Oh, can you just turn on your mic if that's okay, Beatrice?
Hi, Glenn. I just wanted to know if there are any incentives or disincentives to this program, like to this changes, like, you know, I'm thinking of potential issues that might arise where people might, if the garbage isn't picked up that often, they might end up like dumping it somewhere or things like that. Like, so just a question.
Do you mean with the idea of biweekly collection? Is it related to that or?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So yeah, that is one of the key aspects of if that were to be adopted. It's right now it's just an option for consideration. But if it was, there would be a heavy engagement with the community preparing for that type of change. Most municipalities, there's always going to be a few growing pains with that type of change. But many municipalities, including most of our neighboring municipalities, have already made that step. And it just takes a little while to work through that. But to definitely, as far as public littering, enforcement, and in education is the key for that.
If I don't see any other further questions for Glenn on the oh, sorry, I see a hand. Zach, take it away.
Yeah, just a question for Glenn about the biweekly pickup. Would that mean that more trucks would be going out on a biweekly basis? Would people be getting 2 bags picked up? Like,
so the way it typically works is that there's a different ways to do it, but typically it is a weekly type service for organics and garbage and recycling would continue, and then there would be bi-weekly for garbage. So there's more incentive to use your blue boxes and your organics on a weekly basis. And then less gets into the garbage. So there would be less trucks on the road for garbage collection. On a weekly basis.
Oh, Linda just has a question. Take it away.
Thanks very much. Hi, Glenn. Just a question around, because I think what's really interesting to me is what you shared about community support for using organic waste to generate renewable natural gas. And I know that's an important part of the climate action strategy, particularly the community energy and emissions plan. So I wonder if you could speak a little bit to where we're at right now with organics diversion, those sorts of rates, and what, with the new solid waste management master plan moving forward, what sort of work is happening to increase diversion? I mean, I keep looking at this as, we think about organic waste as waste, but how do we kind of reframe it so that we're looking at it as a resource? So I just wonder if you could comment a little bit more on some of those pieces. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll talk about the organics diversion first, and then some of the how we're trying to address organics processing will be in the next part of the presentation. But as far as organics participation rate in the city. It's low. It's, I believe, I don't know the specific number offhand, but I'd say it's between 30 and 40%. So there's definitely room for improvement through the curbside, like single family home program. But as far as where, so there's going to be a focus there throughout the master plan process to try and increase those rates. But there's already plans for next year for a direct focus on multi-residential buildings and reintroducing the carts back to buildings who may have fallen off the program. So yes, it's through the strategies in the master plan to increase the curbside bi-weeklies, one of the options there for that's been a proven way of doing that. Education for apartment buildings and engagement with the superintendent companies. That is another focus for increasing participation. I guess maybe one more I can mention too is there's ideas of incentive programs. We had a gold box program when we had we're responsible for the blue box, but looking into like gold sticker programs for the green cart, those type of engagement with the community to try to incentivize a little bit as well. I believe that answers your question.
Just to confirm, Mary Ellen, is that your hand from before? Do you have a question for Glenn? Oh, thanks. No worries. Thank you. All right. Thanks, Glenn. If you want to move on to the renewables, natural gas, that would be great, and the organics diversion.
Okay. So through the chair, I'll move on to speak about the organics management strategy phase 2 technical feasibility study and how it supports the city's energy emissions plan. So we know this group knows more than anyone that about the Hamilton's climate commitments. So we have the climate emergency declaration in 2019, committing to net zero by 2015. We got to have our community energy emissions plan that outlines 5 key transformations, which involve waste management and renewable energy. And the organic strategy is could be a cornerstone to achieving these targets. So to a little bit of a project overview. The 2 main goals of the strategy are intend to address the preferred future processing options for green cart organics and leaf and yard waste. So as currently the central compost facility is at a maximum capacity of 20,000 tons per year. The facility requires air handling upgrades to increase capacity. It was originally designed for over 60,000 tons per year, but when it experienced odor issues in 2018, 2019, it reduced capacity. Also, the leaf and yard waste pad at Glanbrook Landfill will no longer be able to accept yard waste material within the next 1 or 2 years. This is because the pad itself is located in a future landfill cell that will need to start being developed. So there's a need for a strategy for both curbside green cart organics and leaf and yard waste curbside material. This phase 2 study builds on our phase 1 study, the organics strategy project, which included an assessment of organics management opportunities. The assessment report was created with consultants GHD, which assessed 19 options, and based on 7 parameters, 5 options were moved forward for further investigation. Phase 2 is again working with GHD's consultants, where we're looking at these 5 options through the climate change lens. So right now you'll see the options listed there. So option 1. So actually, let me just note that there's 3 of these options were on its options 2, 3, and 4 were part of that were brought forward from the phase 1, and then we kept status quo on there, and then we also added the 5th option because it was just suggested by the general manager's office as something to look into. So first option, status quo, maintains our current composting approach at the composting facility. While it's familiar and low cost, it doesn't align with climate goals due to its lack of energy recovery and limited capacity. So we'll know that status quo does include, just when for comparative purposes, it includes the necessary air handling system to get the facility back up to 40,000 tons or up to 40,000 tons. So status quo really is just maintain turning food waste into compost at the compost facility. Option number 2 is wet anaerobic digestion. It's the most promising in terms of renewable energy. It converts food waste into renewable natural gas and the digestate into biochar. It supports our climate targets and offers new revenue streams. However, it can't process leaf and yard waste, so it will still need to be composted at a third-party facility. Wet AD would involve building an anaerobic digester. It is the most costly option. Option number 3 is a plug flow anaerobic digestion. This allows for co-processing of food waste and yard waste, which is beneficial given our yard waste challenges at the landfill. It produces RNG and compost, but it has higher life cycle costs and lower biogas yields than wet AD. But this option is favorable because it involves retrofitting our existing composting operation at the central compost facility, so utilizing the existing tunnels that are there. Option 4 is just flat out sending the food waste component to another facility that processes food waste into renewable natural gas, and then using the compost facility for yard waste. That using the CCF for yard waste isn't a great use of that facility. It's an expensive way to compost yard waste, which can be done pretty easily outdoors and outdoor windrows, which is what's happening at Glanbrook landfill right now. And then lastly is the option of pre-treatment at the CCF. So it's pre-processing food waste into a type of slurry that can be used for anaerobic digestion. It's a hybrid model that could use the internal or external AD capacity. So internal being the Woodward treatment plant and external being another AD facility. We're speaking with the water treatment staff. This might line up as an idea in the future, but not in the near future, 2031, 2032. So there's opportunities in the future for this, but not in the short term. That's what we've learned so far. All options are designed, except for status quo, to be at least 60,000 tons per year and are being evaluated for the technical, financial, and environmental and social performance. The preferred option will be presented to council later, early next year. Mentioned. So to make the informed recommendation, we're collecting a wide range of data across technical and financial and environmental avenues. We starting with waste audits and forecasting. So to understand how much organic material we need to manage in the future, We developed projections and how much we can realistically divert from landfill. Next, we conducted a technology assessment comparing anaerobic digestion systems, composting, and emerging options like pyrolysis. We're evaluating each for energy recovery and reliability and compatibility with our feedstock. Just to note, pyrolysis is a promising technology that we included because it destroys contaminants by heating them to high temperatures in the absence of oxygen. This process breaks down contaminants into like less harmful substances. There's a new emerging contaminant, PAFs, polyfluoroalkyl substances, and this is the type of technology that can handle that. We looked at site selection, a critical factor. So we looked at 5 sites, including the central composting facility, the material recycling facility, and looked specifically at zoning, access, environmental sensibility. Preference is in site selections that are given where existing infrastructure is to minimize the potential construction costs. On the financial side, we're modeling the capital and operating costs, revenue potential and risk. We're calculating net present value and payback periods for each option. And environmentally, we're estimating the GHG reductions, diversion improvements, and potential carbon credit revenue. These align with our climate goals and SEEP targets. Looking at market demand for RNG and digestate and products like compost and biochar, working with our fleet division to see if this gas was produced, how we can align it with our existing fleet and future fleet. And finally, we're engaging with stakeholders, city staff, council, third-party processors, potential buyers to ensure the recommended option reflects the community and operational priorities. All of this information will be put together and synthesized into a feasibility report and recommendation memo that will be guiding our decision early next year. So last slide here. This is just the next steps. So we're about halfway through the project. Next, we'll wrap up the financial and environmental analysis. We just this last week engaged all the division heads in an evaluation of options, and we'll start preparing the recommendation memo. So we are on track with bringing this report and to council in March of next year. So with that, I'll jump to saying thank you and ask if there's any questions.
Thanks so much, Glenn. Really appreciate the presentation. Are there any questions? Oh, yeah, I'm just looking through the hands. I don't see any right now. So Trevor, take it away.
Hey, Glenn, it's Trevor here. Thanks for the presentation. Super informative. I just wonder, and I don't know if we got into this at our last meeting, but will the scope of the feasibility include like the applicability of the existing like CNG infrastructure? Because I know there's a lot of feasibility and analysis going around the existing composting facility versus potentially new facility, and looking at the kind of cost and feasibility of using existing infrastructure. And I just wonder, does that also apply to the existing CNG fleet and infrastructure of like with the last picture that you sent, or that you showed there?
Yes, I should have along the way explained each one of those pictures. My apologies. But yes, that last picture was our garbage truck. Actually, I'll slide back there real quick. Oh, I stopped sharing. Oh, no, I have shared. Okay, so yes, that picture is our waste, our newer waste packer trucks lined up next to our portable CNG charging stations. So yes, we are, to answer your question, we are looking at that. We have engaged with the folks over in Fleet, looking into the specifications of the buses, the future these trucks that we have now, future trucks, waste collection trucks. We're also engaged with the water treatment folks just to see if there is or if there is not any sort of options for future synergies with the organics being or some type of slurry being fed into the Woodward treatment plant. There's a lot to it. And there's definitely not the ability while the new upgrades are going on right now or being worked on right now for until that 2032 timeline. But it doesn't mean that depending on which options we choose, we couldn't be doing one option while still in the background keeping that in mind for something else. There's also other ideas as far as sludge and digestate could be composted at the CCF. So the synergy is really the compost facility supporting the Woodward treatment plants anaerobic digestion renewable program rather than building a whole new one at another site. So yes, we are looking at some specifics are the flow rates of what type of the total solids that it would have to be brought over to that the Woodward treatment plant, any sort of type of processing or pre-processing equipment that would be needed. That's all being evaluated in this as well.
Great. And just a question from Linda.
Thank you. Just one more quick question, Glenn. Just wondering, in the assessment that's being done in evaluating the different options, alternatives that you shared on that chart, whether there are any details there around provincial level approvals and whether they vary depending on the preferred option that staff end up putting forward. I wonder if you could speak to that just briefly for us. Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. Environmental compliance approvals is a key part of any sort of site evaluation. Definitely, the sites that we would consider would meet the source testing requirements, so they'd be set back from the property line, allowing enough space between any sensitive receptors. The composting facility at 1579 Burlington Street and was one of the front runners ideally because it does have the environmental compliance approval already.
Just a question. I don't think I missed it, but just in case I did miss it, you didn't share what the preferred option is likely to be just as yet, right? You guys are still working on figuring that out, right?
Yeah, it's that'll be brought forward to in March of next year.
Okay. And then I know just because of the, I know at present, Hamilton does collect renewable natural gas from the sewage treatment plants and then puts it into the Enbridge pipeline system. This would be, if renewable natural gas is produced, this was really looking to try and kind of replace natural gas use that the city has for its own fleet, correct?
Yes, that's the idea. Ideally, that would be the way we do it. The idea of circular economy, where we could generate fuel from our food waste to power our own collection vehicles that collect the food waste. It is kind of the perfect scenario. There.
It is a thing of beauty to see that happen.
Yeah.
But I was just curious, from a technological perspective, is there additional kind of purification that needs to happen to the RNG to move it into vehicles directly as opposed to a pipeline? Or is it exactly the same quality of RNG that would serve both those purposes?
It is different. I can't speak to the technicalities of how it's different, but I do know there's different pre-processing for vehicles versus at the pipeline.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? Frank, take it away, Frank. Oh,
Thank you for the presentation. And I just had a question with respect to wood waste. Is that part of your the waste management division? You know, talking about you collect obviously the leaves, but wood chips and things. Where do they go?
So I think, yeah, wood chips could come to as part of our leaf and yard waste program. I think you can, yeah, you can definitely dump, like we have commercial vehicles who are like landscapers, tree cutters, who drop wood chips off at the transfer stations regularly. But yeah, branches, logs, you can drop those off at the community recycling center and transfer stations. Do you mean like wood waste, like furniture?
No, that's the wood waste I'm talking about. Yeah, how is it processed into if it's not? Is there a chipper on site
Yeah.
for logs?
So typically, if a leaf and yard waste is picked up curbside, it's dropped off at our transfer station and then loaded into a top-loaded trailer and taken to Glanbrook landfill. Then it'll go through a grinder of some type. Usually, I think they have one or two different ones up there, a tub grinder. It gets grounded down and then put it into long windrows for 6 months or more. That's really how it goes. There's also the logs that get dropped off, like actual bigger logs that are allowed just at our community recycling centers. And similar, they get ground down, but with a different machine that's bigger.
And just naturally decompose at the Glanbrook site.
And that's right. And because traditionally, usually if it's managed properly, the outdoor leaf and yard waste compost windrows, it doesn't have that same character of smell as food waste compost.
Right.
So it can be done outdoors, whereas food waste compost needs to be done indoors under negative air pressure and needs a larger biofiltration system.
And in your evaluation of different streams, there isn't any to turn that into, let's say, a fuel source, the wood chips into any kind of fuel source.
Right now the options in plug flow, wet AD, the yard waste isn't as compatible in a big digester, but in plug flow it's more allowable. It would have to have some component of yard waste, but it couldn't take all of the city's yard waste, so there'd still be some that would go to an external facility to be composted outdoors in a windrow manner. But not just yard waste for digestion is not considered. It is more so we could use it as an amendment for any sort of a product that comes out of it. So if we were composting food waste, we could use a component of the yard waste as the carbon amendment. And that's the kind of synergy and recipe there.
Thank you.
seeing no more questions, just want to thank you very much, Glenn. I really appreciate the presentation and taking the time to share it with the committee.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And then we'll be moving on to agenda item 7.2, which is the terms of reference for the community liaison group. Oh, you want me to? Okay, perfect. So I know Frank Kemp had a question with regards to whether we had moved on to the community liaison group. I just wanted to respond to Frank and then share it with the rest of the committee members as well. We haven't yet switched over to the community liaison group. We are just at this point in time want to finish off gather the input from the committee on the terms of reference, but then we also wanted to kind of get on the agenda when people think it's the appropriate time time to move over to the community liaison group as well. So there's two kind of goals that we want to discuss today. So I know folks have had a chance to review the terms of reference. Just wanted to kind of highlight if there's any comments, questions related to the terms of reference. We reviewed it at the last meeting, at the September meeting, and then this has just been a streamlined version of the terms of reference. I'll give folks a minute or two just to. Sorry, what was that?
I'm hoping that they can.
Oh, they have it, yeah. Okay. Yep. How are folks feeling? We ready to go on to discussions? Are there any direct questions or issues that people want to raise just before we go into just kind of pointing out a couple of key features? Okay, I don't see any, Trevor. So if you don't mind kind of pointing out a couple of key things that you wanted to just draw attention to.
Yeah, just for the benefit of the group too, Beatrice, if you can scroll to the one regarding council involvement, because I know that was a topic of discussion in previous notes. So Beatrice and I updated that section, and I just wanted to ask the general question of, in terms of where we've highlighted councillors will be invited to the meetings based on kind of an ad hoc basis. But I mean, that doesn't prevent any councillors, for that matter, attending any of future CLG meetings. And so it really will be, I think, up to the group and up to the individual councillors to identify what meetings councillors can attend. But I mean, I think overall it's good in that it's flexible, that allows any councillors to participate. So yeah, just interested in any comments or feedbacks on that section.
And I'll just wanted to raise, just to give a reminder of the process that we've used thus far for this. But one of the key items that I wanted to highlight is that from the previous terms of reference and conversations we had on this, really was summarized all the input from the committee, and then that provided that to the climate team staff, and they incorporated those key wish items from the committee into this version of the terms of reference.
Yeah, Gabby, if I could quickly jump in.
Yep, take it away.
Thanks. So I will say that I think that it is limiting when you have this idea of inviting counselors to meetings. And the reason I'll say that is because, for instance, our schedule came out earlier this month for the entire 2026. And so when we're appointed to these kinds of groups, that appointment happens at the beginning of the term of council. It gets to be something that we regularly check in and come to. And depending on the kinds of notices be able to be provided and that kind of thing, it can be tricky for councillors to attend, right? And so the question becomes, how is the committee going to organize itself in a manner to be able to do that? So I think it just needs to be thought through, right? So, how much notice are you going to get of items that are coming onto your agenda? And then how are you going to make determinations as a committee, right? Who's going to make those decisions? So for instance, will it be the co-chairs that kind of look at the agenda and say, oh, you know what, it'd be good to have such and such a councillor here to discuss this because this is an initiative happening in their ward. You could do that now if you wanted to, right? And honestly, staff would already reach out to councillors if there was an initiative in their ward. So I think it's worth thinking that through in terms of having some councillors here that are appointed to being here and participating, because otherwise I think you're going to struggle. And then I think people will be frustrated because they would maybe want input from time to time. Really, our job here is to listen. And if you have questions for us, to support you as appointees, right? And ask questions from time to time. But I just want to say that I think it'll present a challenge for you if you try and do this in an ad hoc manner. Not saying you can't. I think you need to maybe really articulate what that looks like, right? So
Yeah.
just if you want to go that route.
Thanks. Thanks for that input. And one of the questions that I would have on that one is, with the community liaison group, would we have flexibility for how we, like, the group communicates with council members? Like, would it be possible for the co-chairs to invite all council members to the meeting? Would it be possible for like a summary of what took place at the meeting to be shared with council members? I was just wondering if there's any kind of processes that would be limitations in terms of the committees to be able to communicate with council members, or if not. Or if we don't know yet.
Like you're all citizens and you all have our email addresses, so like as you will.
Okay.
And there's no harm in you communicating with councillors about things, and co-chairs can certainly send emails of that nature. My only comment was really about more the invitation process and how, because you can always say, hey, councillors, come out to this meeting of the Climate Change Advisory Committee, right? And then I just want to let you know, like the thousands of emails we receive, there's going to have to be some context around that. And if you're asking people to come to every meeting, right, then I'm just letting you know, like, I think that just has to be thought through. I'm saying you can manage it. I think there's a way to do it. Just maybe think through how that process looks. What's the criteria you're going to use, for instance, to determine when you're going to invite councillors to meetings? Or does it seem too complicated and frankly, you just have 3 appointees like you have now, and every year term of council, you ask if there's people who will attend, as many meetings as they can attend. That kind of a thing. I'm not sure what makes most sense. I just wanted to flag that for you, but yeah, I'll leave it to you folks.
All right, perfect. Thank you. And then I see, you said there were some hands up. Sue? Take it away, Sue. Thank you.
I did have my hand up. You asked some of the questions that I was going to ask Gabby. But Councillor Crouch, thank you for clarifying that. And I'm just wondering, yeah, that does sound like it's going to make it harder to have councillors involved. So since you have the plan for 2026, does that mean you're still included, like you're still a part of the advisory committee as it stands right now? And so can we make you an offer to come by and visit us then on those dates? Yeah, I just worry about losing such committed councillors. We appreciate you.
Yeah, what I'll say to you is that we're appointed to the Climate Change Advisory Committee at such time when you change your name to something new or the body, changes. I don't know what the rules are around that, how it works if we're still appointed, but you can certainly make the request that for the rest of the term of council, at least, that's how it works. So, I'll let you do that, talk to the clerk's office, see what makes the most sense in terms of doing that. I think where we can be of benefit is specifically around citizen committee reports. So one of the advantages we have of being here is that when you make a citizens committee report to the general issues committee, for instance, in a recommendation, if we're here at the meeting when you're talking about that, we might be able to suggest things to you to help make sure that it's successful. And also we're listening to what the conversation is. So that when it comes to the general issues committee, you have advocates in the room who can say, yes, this is why I came forward and we're supportive of it and so on. So I think that's the value of it. And so maybe that's one of the criteria you use is when you're making citizens committee reports, you invite councillors to come to those specific meetings where you're going to be doing that, and then they can weigh in on that at that time. Otherwise, we get a lot of this information from staff anyways, and through other methods. So being here for staff presentations isn't as critical for us, but maybe that's a way in the future. But yes, we're appointed for the whole term of council. So you might want to suggest, for instance, that you make this transition starting in the next term of council. That might be an easier way of doing it than trying to do it now. If that helps answer your question, Sue.
That's great. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. And then Councillor Alex Wilson.
Yeah, I think maybe a way to think about this is you're drafting your own terms of reference here. And so when it comes to the membership section, for example, if you'd like council appointees, what you just have to do is you have to add in, we'd like council appointees, we want 2, we want 3. My only advice or reflection from this term so far is, if the group as a whole is feeling, hey, these councillors are dominating the conversation, we're not getting a chance to get there, then yeah, maybe you want to limit that or change how that's working then now, and that's totally fine. I do think, as Councillor Kretsch presented, like there's some value and there's times where that value comes up. I think not having us count for quorum if you are having membership helps better balance that. So if people need to come late, miss something, etc., but are there to coordinate it for the better parts, like their attendance isn't impacting the broader meeting's ability to function, but you still have that dedicated targeted line. So I think it's really, really like you folks are making a recommendation to council through this activity by drafting your own terms of reference and saying, this is what we'd like. So I think under membership, I think that's a blank space, and it's up to this committee to kind of put a recommendation in there about what they'd like to fill in the blank with respect to councillors under membership. Similarly, I think it's Trevor doing the screen right now. Thanks to Trevor for having this section of the screen up. I think similarly, if you want your meeting minutes to come to council or like a committee of council, for example, coming to GIC. So it's specified that that's where citizen committee reports would come in that first bullet point under reporting to council, but your meeting minutes would be posted kind of to the general website. If you wanted your minutes to come forward for general awareness or as an item for information to general issues, that would be a place to kind of make that recommendation as well. I think those are my only kind of thoughts for now. Sorry, one last one would be the member selection. So it's really clear about who the membership should be, with except for the councillor kind of question that's been raised. But how are those people picked? How is the chair of the committee picked? Is that done via vote still? I think that's something that you folks didn't necessarily have direct involvement in outside of selecting the chair, but you do have the ability to make a recommendation about those things going forward. Was there value in the selection process as it worked? Do you want it to continue that way? Should the existing committee members have kind of some choice in who serves? Like these are all things that you're making recommendations on as well. And just based on past discussions from the Veterans Committee, that was a question, was who is doing the selection of those members, was a question that came up. And so thinking about what your preferred answer to that question would be is, I think, helpful.
Oh, I didn't realize we get to go do the recommendations on that. That's interesting. Okay. Right? Take it away.
I had to unmute myself. Yeah, I voiced the same concerns that has been voiced by the councillors, that I'm not sure that we're changing to another form of committee, because I guess the Climate Change Advisory Committee it's run its course at the end of this year. We need something else to replace it with. I don't fully understand that. And are we just transitioning to this new group, or do we have to reapply? And so those are basically my questions, because I'm not sure. 2026 is, we still have the same council, but we've changed, we're midstream here, we're changing terms of reference, I guess. And the terms of reference are fairly similar to what we have now for the advisory committee. But yeah, those are the questions. Like, I think the councillors need to be part of the committee, not just invited.
Yeah, that
from
was
time to
definitely
time.
one of the criteria that we heard from committee members, of definitely wanting to keep that engagement between the committee and council members, and in particular the 3 council members who are part of the present committee. That was definitely input we heard from the committee on the value and wanting to retain some functionality of that into as we move to the next process. I did want to highlight that this isn't something this movement towards the community liaison is not something that's related to the Climate Change Advisory Committee. It's an overall process within the city of Hamilton. When we actually officially move to the community liaison, there is some options we consider. We can continue the present course that we have right now with the committee up until the election it's not a RIP, but I guess the summer of next year, summer of 2026 happens, that is an option available to us. There are some kind of pros and cons I did want to highlight. If we stick with our present format, our ability to recruit additional members is a little bit more hamstrung, actually a lot more hamstrung. So that's a kind of con associated with maintaining the status quo until the summer of 2026. But if we do move towards the community liaison format, then the question comes into it. We can still keep the existing members, I would assume, and that was my understanding. And then we can kind of figure out how we do the recruitment of additional members into the community liaison. And that gives us more ownership and opportunities to widen the diversity of stakeholders who are part of this group as well. So there's some pros and cons associated with no decision is without any different pros and cons, but it's something for committee members to consider. We don't actually need to make a decision at this meeting, but it might be worthwhile to kind of have a little bit of people sharing what they see as the pros and cons of maintaining status quo for the committee versus moving towards the community liaison group. If any members have any input on their consideration of that.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with moving to the new format, provided we don't lose what we have now. Is I mean, it's going to be change is always going to occur, and there's going to be differences, but you want to maintain the initiatives that we've already started.
Yeah.
That's my only comment.
Thanks. Sue.
I don't think that any of us on the committee are, committed to maintaining the status quo. I think that it's really important that we have those issues about, the councillor involvement, who's making the selections for the committee, those sorts of things ironed out. But I do think it's pretty exciting that we could be opening this up to more people who can help with this, and I think that is an exciting and new thing. But I just wanted to say that we do kind of need to have those things a little more clear before we do that. But I'm just curious. Sorry, I don't know if I missed this part. When would recruitment ideally begin for this, so that people have enough time to even learn about the option?
That's a very good question. Trevor, take it away.
Good. Thanks, Sue. I'm going to try my best and kind of preface this by this continues to be an evolving topic of discussion, like across the city and with clerk's office as well. But in terms of timing, so we've been given a direction by council to report back roughly by the end of February with what this new CLG is going to look like. So if we maintain that timeline, and if approved, then we could go forward with the recruitment options shortly thereafter. That's my current understanding. I think Gabby, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is like what you're alluding to is that end of February is kind of like our hard deadline. We could go earlier. We're quickly running out of runway in terms of the end of the year, but I mean, we could potentially go earlier. So therefore we could start this recruitment process earlier as well. And I just kind of going back to what Councillor A. Wilson mentioned is, that's for the committee, this committee to decide how you all feel that this committee and as staff, we should be doing that recruitment process, knowing that currently it's staff's understanding that the existing interview subcommittee of council will no longer happen. But there could be something where it's staff and CCAC members go out for public-wide recruitment or some sort of hybrid strategy to ensure we're going out to the community to properly recruit the members that we need and want around the table.
Yeah.
So I don't see any reason why we have working groups, and we should be those opportunities right there to recruit people. Regardless of whether we're what stage we move over to community liaison group. So let's not forget that opportunity as well.
So that's a good point, Beatrice. So one of the opportunities is like, if we do recruitment, like let's say we kind of move towards it sometime in February or March. If we do recruitment as part of our working group efforts, that can turn into community liaison members once we pull the trigger and go into that format. Is that correct? Yeah? So we can kind of still keep that February timeframe, but not be held back on that recruitment effort of getting more stakeholders involved. And then potentially losing the council representation. So that was that's one opportunity for folks to consider in terms of really, one question I have, would we still have supports from city entities like the Engage Hamilton, the communications out to communication teams who can help us kind of put word out to the community? I was just wondering if there's still that support that we would be able to achieve, or if it would be left to the to the committee itself to do that work.
Again, I'll try. From the Engage website, you would need to work, and regardless, you would need to work with our staff liaisons to do that, and we're more than happy to help do that. I think the only thing that we would lose from this formal structure is like the clerk's office support in that engagement activities, where they would put it in newspapers and et cetera. There was a set budget for them to do that, but we have our own budget through the CCAC, and that will transition to the CLG. So what's to stop this group from saying, well, part of that budget should be related to or geared towards recruitment efforts in the future?
Okay. So then we would also, as part of this, moving to this, we would have to develop a recruitment process and criteria that before we would, by February as well then, correct?
In general, I feel like that would be correct. I think it probably is best like in the terms of reference. I don't think it needs to be I don't think it needs to be super detailed, but definitely would love the input from the group around how we can structure the terms of reference on that general like recruitment process, and who what the responsibilities are. And I did like the comment, I think it was Councillor A. Wilson again, about, well, how are chairs picked too? And generally in the past, we formed the committee first, and then the committee picked its own chairs, right? So is that something you want to carry forward, or is there a new process the CLG would like to do?
Is there any input from the committee in terms of kind of these discussions taking place and the choices? Would it be an appropriate kind of action item from this that we bring in recruitment processes and council engagement into the terms of reference, and then we kind of have a vote on the terms of reference at the next meeting? Would that make sense? Because we would need to add those two pieces in to meet all the points that people raised. Okay. Sue, take it away.
Are there any other municipalities who've made the community liaison group jump? Is there anything we can learn from them on the recruitment process, like how they have structured it? I feel like there's a lot that can kind of go wrong here, and I feel really uncomfortable directing like who should be, what the criteria should be. But I feel like just even from the beginning stages, when Trevor and Linda were putting on these webinars to inform people about the Climate Change Advisory Committee, and there were a lot of questions that came from that. I feel like there are going to be so many questions. It would be wonderful to know if Trevor, Linda, if OCCI has spoken with any other municipalities who have a climate change advisory. Sorry, that's not a climate change CLG of some sort, if you've spoken with them.
I'll start and maybe ask Beatrice to see if she can jog her memory on. So short answer is specifically me, no. I've not talked to other municipalities through participating in this internal CLG staff liaison collaborative internal working group. My understanding is they've looked at other municipalities to do CLGs, and I want to say Kingston comes to mind, but I could be wrong on that one. But I mean, internally, we have talked to other, I'll say, entities like, and Beatrice, correct me if I'm wrong here, it's the youth. There's the youth group that follows a more flexible, as well as the Hamilton Immigrant Partnership Council as well, that follows a more flexible approach, knowing that HIPSI, though, is also transitioning to more of a CLG function as well. So there are existing like internal, and I mean, the youth engagement working group, I think comes top of mind of they've been internally doing it the longest. But I think that's a great point, Sue, and something we can definitely take back as kind of a staff. Maybe we should reach out to Kingston or other organizations that have similar climate groups that aren't official advisory committees and more aligned with the CLG type of entity.
Yeah, definitely, Sue. We will look into that. As Trevor said, the staff that was involved in exploring this model in the first place, they approached these different municipalities to find out how that worked. So we should get more information on that. So thanks for bringing that up. And the other thing is, I think that there's some restrictions. We don't have compensation frameworks like some municipalities have, like Ajax or Kingston. So we do. If we're looking to involve more community members from diverse backgrounds, that is going to be something that we have to think about as well. So let's get back to you on those two pieces once we talk with our bigger group. Thanks.
So then I have on my notes in terms of there seems to be, is there any input from the committee on the terms of reference and what's in it at present? Any changes, any issues? Is this looking relatively good at every agreement on this, general agreement? Okay, so then I did want to add, there's a couple of things from the conversation thus far that I can see that are missing. We probably kind of need to have something in there in terms of council engagement. The recruitment process and the selection criteria in the terms of reference. And then I did add in there some sort of maybe some compensation, a compensation section for the community liaison group as well. Are there any other to-dos or gaps in the terms of reference that people want to raise right now that would help to inform our next meeting on this? It seems those are the three issues. I think, Frank, is that a hand from before? Or is that for now?
That's a hand from before.
Okay,
yes,
no worries. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have that. If there's something that comes to mind, if people can make sure to email Beatrice, that would be amazing on that kind of, or even all the community members as well, on any additional items that we need to bring into the terms of reference for the next meeting. Great. So we have that agenda item. Then I'm going to move on to the Office of Climate Change Initiatives updates. There's two. There's the funded, the Climate Reserve funded projects, and then the OCCI Climate Forum, which is for tomorrow. Take it away, Linda.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll jump in and start with the Climate Change Reserve and 2025 city-led projects recommended for reserve funding. So we circulated to all of you a communication update back in mid-October, just so that we could, as soon as we had updated council, we wanted to ensure that we also shared with you the list of projects that is moving forward, that's been recommended through the review process for funding. So hopefully you all had a chance to look at that memo. It is also appended to the agenda for today. If you haven't had a chance to look, you'll find it there as well. And I guess for anyone in the community who wants to take a look, the details are there. So you'll all recall that we did go through a process that included engaging any interested members of the advisory committee on updating the application template for the 2025 round. And then the other important change that we made was that the review team consisted of directors sitting on the director level Climate Change Initiative Steering Committee and representation from the Climate Change Advisory Committee as well. So those folks went through a scoring process utilizing that updated application template, and they ended up landing where they landed with a list of 7 projects. I will say it's been interesting as we go through each year. We're tightening up the template and making it, designing it so that it really is touching on issues that, collectively we've all discussed as being important. And I think there's also more careful consideration being given to, over time, what are the kinds of activities that, the municipality should really be normalizing, and where are the ones where it makes sense to be providing some support to move things forward. So just very quickly, I don't want to go through every project in detail, but I will say I'm happy to answer any specific questions about any of the projects on the list. You'll see that there are 2 very large recommended allocations. One is for an eco-literacy electric bookmobile, and that came from Hamilton Public Library. They've asked for $500,000, which represents about 25% of the funding they need for that project. And this would bring on their first electric bookmobile, combined with some programming as well, to raise community awareness about climate, renewable energy, environmental sustainability. So that's a big one. The other big recommended allocation is an application from City Housing Hamilton, and they've come forward with a request that would cover 28% of a project that they've proposed. And they're looking at, it's essentially an existing social housing townhouse complex on the upper escarpment. And they're proposing what they call a community energy emissions and cooling transformation through heat pumps and solar voltaics. So this is an interesting one from an adaptation point of view, because it does also pay attention to that need for cooling in the extreme heat, but in a way that focuses on low carbon ways to make that happen in residential units. And then the remaining projects on the list include everything from a portable charging unit for the electric fire truck that Hamilton Fire has already moved forward with procuring, a social procurement strategic design and implementation planning project. So this is really about, socially responsible, but also green, climate-friendly procurement. And if you look at Hamilton's climate action strategy and our community energy and emissions plan, this is an important enabling action that you'll find in that plan. A smaller amount here for battery-operated hand tools, and that request came from the transportation division, and they have a vision of ultimately this would help them with 30% of their tools, but ultimately over time to shift all of the tools over to electric options. Solar powered park and playground lighting is another project, and this one is a technology that Public Works hasn't used before, so they partly want to try that out. And you'll also see on this list a pilot backyard tree planting program, and this one is forestry and horticulture in Public Works in partnership with the Hamilton Naturalist Club. So it's an interesting project focused on backyard planting of larger caliper trees, but it's very much designed to provide sort of, for lack of a better way to describe it, wraparound services for community members who maybe want a tree in their backyard. They're going to prioritize neighborhoods, higher needs neighborhoods where we know the canopy is low and people could really benefit from more shade. And there will be supports right from planting those trees to stewarding them, particularly over the first couple of years when it's really important to do that. I'm going to pause there just to ask if there are any questions about any of the projects on the list. Maybe I'll also add that at this point, we are scheduled to move forward with a report to council that will be on the November 12th General Issues Committee meeting. And ultimately, these will be put in front of that committee for their discussion and approval. So I'll just pause in case you have questions about the projects, and then I have a few more things I just wanted to add about this report.
Sue, take it away.
Thank you, Linda. I just wanted to thank you. You really listened to us. It was hard to say that I was disappointed last year, and that was really hard. You spend a lot of time, all of you, finding ways to get our input on this. And I believe is it Jeff and Zach who worked with you on this, over the summer. So thank you to them as well. Some of these are just really exciting. And I like the way that some of the projects are incorporating this, kind of shared usage as well. Like, I think I can't see it. It's not in front of me right now, but I think it was the bookmobile, and they could be used also to transport the trees for the tree giveaways. And there were a whole bunch of things in there that were just really exciting. So great job.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Sue. And I will say, we're heading into 2026, and just to prepare all of you, we will likely be front-ending the 2026 intake process so we can get a cycle of funding in before we head into election season. So, and I guess we're going to be navigating potentially a shift in the structure of this entity, but I just put the word out there for anyone who's willing to consider stepping up and helping us with that review process for this cycle. Start to give it some thought now, because we do want to continue with including advisory committee members at that table. And I also just wanted to add, in terms of the report that's moving forward on November 12th, each year those reports do include, in this section, there's more to it each year. We do provide updates on progress with implementation of city-led projects that were funded in previous years. So you'll find that when that report is public, you can see that kind of information in there. We do also include updates on funding that's allocated to support Office of Climate Change Initiative priority focus areas. And that can happen, and I think we've shared this with you. Our general manager in planning and economic development has delegated authority to approve anything less than $250,000. So I can tell you, and I know you know this already, in 2025, there was $75,000 in funding allocated to support the co-design of the climate justice framework. We're also moving forward with an approved allocation of $100,000 to ultimately support our neighborhood climate action small grants program. And fingers crossed, we'll see an intake for that fund in before 2026 is over. And I'm just going to quickly check. I had a few other notes here. I just want to make sure I don't miss anything. Okay. Oh, and I guess the other piece too is, in this report, we'll also provide brief updates, and Councillor Wilson, you'll appreciate this. We've got some updates in this report on those allocations that happened through a motion that you put forward to support accelerating some biodiversity action. So there were two pieces there. One was the allocation of some funding, $200,000 from the reserve back in 2023 to support an update to Hamilton's natural areas inventory. And then the other piece there was an allocation of $150,000 to our natural areas acquisition fund. And that fund provides community partners with the opportunity to apply for up to $50,000 to support their ability to acquire and protect properties, significant naturalized areas within the municipality. So that could include, for instance, players who've tapped into the fund include conservation authorities. Hamilton Naturalist Club is another that has properties they've protected. So a nice way to support expanding those protected areas within the municipality. That's it from me on that piece, unless there are more questions.
Thanks, Linda. Any other further questions? I have one question that I'd love to ask if it's possible, and I would love to get input from the committee members as well. I was looking at the City Housing Hamilton and the cooling project, which I think is really great. I love that project. And the fact that you're using heat pumps rather than just air conditioners, which are not necessarily energy efficient, and then moving away, that's helping with the decarbonization of building heating as well. And I think that's fantastic. I was wondering if committee members may be interested in a presentation from City Housing Hamilton. And the reason I say that is because City Housing Hamilton it's a really good news story for us here in Hamilton. They are one of the leaders across the province on decarbonizing their existing building stock and energy efficiency. And I think that it would be really nice. I think the committee members would be interested in learning a little bit more about how City Housing Hamilton is actually doing that, like the implementation that they're pursuing, how they've secured that implementation progress, and other kind of questions that the committee might have for them. Would folks be interested in a presentation from City Housing Hamilton? Could just raise your hand. Perfect. Excellent. Okay, excellent. So we'll put the request out there to City Housing Hamilton if we could, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great idea. They're doing lots of wonderful work on both new builds and like this example, retrofitting existing residential units. So for sure.
Perfect. Thank you.
So I want to turn to both Trevor and Beatrice, and I don't know if there's anything either of you wanted to add in the way of updates today. Trevor, I don't know, do you want to give the pitch for our climate forum tomorrow night?
Yeah, just quickly, and I think I'll wait in terms of the other project-specific updates through the technical and governance working group. But for tomorrow, you are all welcome to attend our upcoming climate forum, which as of about 2 hours ago, we were at a total number of registrations of 108 people registered for tomorrow's event. So it's going to be a great turnout with a great keynote. Ralph Torre, I've heard him speak a couple of times already throughout the years, but he's a great presenter with really important economic modeling through overall grid expansion and how we do it in the most cost-effective and sustainable way. And he's been a long-standing and internationally renowned economist. And also what a lot of people don't know about Ralph is he was one of the analysts to help Hamilton develop its community energy and emissions plan. So he's familiar with Hamilton in the local context, and we look forward to having him here. And yeah, it's tomorrow evening starting at 4:30 at David Braley Health Sciences Center. We have received a number of RSVPs from this group, so thank you all and looking forward to it.
Perfect. Thanks, Trevor. So are there any, before you kind of move on, any questions, final questions for staff? No? Oh, Mary Ellen, take it away.
I just wanted to ask Trevor, I'd mentioned to him last week that timing of the forum was really tight with another commitment I have, and it's not looking good. So I'm wondering whether there will be a recording of the keynote available after the event.
Yeah, thanks, Mary Ellen. Unfortunately, there won't be any recordings, but we have committed to sharing the presentation with everyone who expressed interest in registering. So more than happy to, and I'll work through Beatrice to send out a copy of the presentation to the members of this committee, and more than happy to have any follow-up discussions with you, Mary Ellen, about the event.
So then if it's okay, if there's no further questions, we'll move on to item 7.3, which is the Climate Change Advisory Committee Working Group updates. We'll start with the Buildings Working Group, which I'll provide an update on and send an apology. I have not been able to pull together a meeting for October, but I promise I will pull together a meeting for November. What I'm thinking for that meeting, and I'd love to get some input, and I will include all of the committee members in the invitation to this, but one of the things I thought would be really good for us to engage with the Bay Area Climate Change Collaborative. They've been working on a lot of green development standards and buildings and wider stakeholder engagement across Hamilton. And I think that they have a lot of really good insights that they can bring to the committee. So I'm going to try and secure a presentation from Bay Area Climate Change Collaborative on what they're doing. So that's one item that will be kind of going on. I think the other agenda item for that meeting will also be on Bill 17, potential implications related to green development standards, because we are facing an issue with the possibility / likelihood that the provincial government will be passing legislation or trying to curtail municipal mandatory green development standard authorities. And it's something I think we all need to be aware of on that risk and what are the different possibilities for addressing that risk. It's not necessarily something I think the committee can play a role in there in terms of it. I think that certainly the pushback on the provincial omnibus bill that can undermine municipal green development standard authorities will likely be coming from municipalities themselves or from the low carbon energy sector to really push back on that. But it is something that we should be aware of, that there are risks to municipal authorities on green development standards. And that's the updates I have for that. I will be sending an email with the with an invitation to the buildings working group to the larger committee as well. Any questions? No? Okay, so then we can move on to community engagement and climate justice working group. Any updates?
Yes, I'll
Thanks.
keep this short-ish and sweet. On behalf of the Community Engagement and Climate Justice Working Group, my co-chair Shelley Rempel and I are delighted to welcome Natalie Morgan and Hans Kogan to our group. I also wanted to extend a heartfelt thanks to all of you for supporting the sharing of CAMH's Youth Climate Action and Hope Photo Voice study for youth ages 12 to 25. The response was incredible, and nearly 30 people, groups, and institutions reached out within the first day, and interest continued for more than a week. The Director of Strategy, Climate Resilience, and Youth Mental Health at CAMH has asked me to share their sincere gratitude for your help with this. There have been a lot of other things that have happened along throughout the month. On October 7th, the city, OCCI, and members of the Community Engagement Climate Justice Working Group participated in a cross-municipality climate response think tank planning session. On October the 8th, I had the pleasure of introducing Shelley to Sweelan Andrew from CAMH, and together we began exploring opportunities for collaboration between CAMH, our working group, the CCAC, OCCI, and in efforts to kind of strengthen the climate-related mental health resources and training that is available and co-create those. And these are just the beginning. This is just the beginning of some of these conversations, but we look forward to sharing these updates when we get more information. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Sue. Any questions for Sue? Seeing none. Okay. Just the Nature-Based Solutions Working Group. Juliana, if you have any updates.
No updates at this time, Gabby.
Okay, thanks. Okay. I don't think we have anyone from the Technical and Governance Working Group here yet for an update, do we? Oh, perfect. Mary Ellen. Okay, thank you. Take it away.
Yes, last week we had a small meeting of the governance subset of that working group. And we had a briefing from Trevor about the Hamilton's carbon budget and accounting framework, the progress, status, and next steps on that project. So the committee might recall that development of a carbon budget and accounting framework was one of the initial major projects endorsed under the approval of the climate strategy. And resources were allocated, and a consulting firm retained, and work has been ongoing with that. and from time to time, I think we've heard from Trevor, we are approaching the submission of a report to council on this project. And in summary, the direction from council was to investigate and design a carbon accounting framework, including a carbon budget for the city and implementing policy. So a technical team was established to work with the Climate Office and the consultants on this. And the project, it has neared completion of the development process. The carbon budget and accounting framework is being refined to be ready for report to council, and Trevor might be able to give a better indication of when that might happen, later this year or early the next. Although the project addresses the carbon budget of Hamilton as a whole, this initial stage is focused on the municipality's contribution to greenhouse gas emissions in Hamilton, and the municipal finance and budgeting processes in order to ensure that emissions are considered when the leadership and council makes decision about budget. So the process have had to look at what Hamilton's carbon emissions would be with limited or no action, to project emissions that would be generated if key actions were taken. They have had to establish essentially what a carbon budget would be for the city, and start to refine some tools in order to ensure that the administration is familiar with the carbon budget, with the objectives of it, and that not only are staff trained up and familiar with the adoption of a climate lens as they work through budgeting processes, but it will also need to address leadership from administration and political champions as well, and ensure consistent use of tools and policy. And as was mentioned earlier in the waste management presentation, the target is a 50% reduction in emissions by 2030 using 2006 as the baseline, but ultimately by 2050, the intention is that the city, the municipality achieve net zero, and through working with community partners, ultimately the city as a whole achieve that goal. So as I said, the next steps will involve a report back to council to let council know what has been accomplished, and hopefully to seek endorsement to move ahead. So I'll ask Trevor about the timing of all that.
So I'm going to have Mary Ellen do the presentation for me to council. No, thank you, Mary Ellen. That was a wonderful update, very, very thorough. We are tentatively eyeing the General Issues Committee for December 3rd, following approval of through our GM review. We are engaging and have informal commitment from finance to make it a joint report. They are overall supportive of this direction, but just some internal approval processes to work through. I would suggest our next CCAC meeting is November 25th, correct, Beatrice? And I will intend to do some sort of presentation to the CCAC on the carbon budget and accounting framework components, then to allow the CCAC to provide that discussion on whether or not they want to send someone to delegate. And I always appreciate a friendly delegation in support of that type of work. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary Ellen. Thanks, Trevor. Any questions? No? Anyone from the transportation? I think Ian's not here. I'm not sure if there's anyone else, from transportation. No? Okay, so no updates on transportation. Okay. So we do have to pass a vote for this one, so just wanted to kind of to a mover and a seconder to receive the above items that from the presentation from the waste management and then the updates from the OCCI office. If I can have a mover and a seconder, please. Sue is a mover and a seconder. Shelley, thank you. Okay, and that's passed. We don't have any items for consideration. We don't have any motions. So just any other business that we should have. Does anybody else want to bring in any other business? No? Okay, so then based on that, we can make we can do an adjournment. I don't think we need to do a motion or a motion or a mover or a seconder. So the meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining and for all the input. Really appreciate that. Thanks, and see you on see you on November at the latest or before then.